Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about petty cash. This is found in the 2024 district test, group number 8. So let's talk about what petty cash is. Petty cash is a small amount of money that a business keeps on hand for small purchases. So in order to start a petty cash fund or establish it, we're going to learn the journal entry. So to establish petty cash, you would debit the account petty cash. And let's say we're going to establish it for $100. And then you're going to credit cash because that's the amount we're taking from the business bank account and putting it into the petty cash. Now, this is my petty cash box. I'm using it as an illustration to visualize. So let's just say, we just stuck $100 worth of cash into this small little box that we keep on hand. It's the actual cash. Now, during the month, we're going to say we're going to spend some money. So we want to keep track of what we spent. So we could have, let's say we spend $20 on postage expense. Let's say we spend $15 on supplies. And then let's say we spend $40 on an advertising expense. So the total amount we spent that month was $75. Now, so when we go count how much should be left in the petty cash fund, should be $25. 100 minus 20 or 75. $25. But sometimes when we go actually count it, it doesn't always match. So let's say when we counted it, there was only $24 in there. So you have to ask yourself, are we short? Are we over? It's supposed to be 25, there's 24, so we're short. Now there is an account to keep track of this called cash, short, and over. If it's short, we're going to debit it. If it's over, we're going to credit it. One way that helps me is debits come before credit. So short is the debit, over is a credit. So how much is it short or over? It's short, because it's supposed to be $25. It's short $1. Now, at the end of the month, it's time to replenish the petty cash fund, which means put back the amount of money that we spent so it starts at 100 again. So the way you do that is you're going to list as debits the accounts that we spent the money on. So we're going to debit postage expense for $20. We're going to debit supplies for $15. We're going to debit advertising expense for $40. And then we're going to put debit, because it's short, cash, short, and over, $1. Now, if it was over, you would be crediting it, but it's short. Now, how much cash, by the way, cash is our credit because we got to put cash back into the petty cash fund. How much cash are we taking out of our banking account to put back in here to make it be 100 again? Well, the easiest way to do this is just add up the amounts here. So when you add them up, use your calculator, 20 plus 15 plus 40. We know that is 75 and then 76. So we need to put $76 back into the petty cash fund. So it will equal 100 again. Now, if you would, go ahead and go to your description. Go ahead and download Group 8. And I'll give you time to do that. And then we're going to go over Group 8 and check our answers. Hopefully this was helpful. Thanks. Okay, let's go over Group 8 on the District 2024 test. Let's read the directions. So it says the following transactions occurred in the petty cash fund of Straight Company, which began operation on January 1st. It is the company's policy to record supplies as assets when purchased. Consider the following data and answer questions 53 through 57. All right, let's go ahead and go over the dates. Now, I'm going to show you this just to kind of help explain petty cash, but to be honest, you don't have to write all this out when you're taking the test. It would take too long. But let's just go ahead and do the journal entries here. So on January 1st, we established a petty cash fund in the amount of $150. So we're going to debit petty cash for $150, and we're going to credit cash for $150. Now, looking at question 53, to the entry to establish the petty cash fund would consist of what? Well, we know it says A says a debit to cash when we know we're crediting it. B says a debit to petty cash for $150, so that looks right. And then C says a credit to cash for $150. So that one's right as well. So the answer would be D, both B and C. All right, number 54. The entry to record the reimbursement of the petty cash fund on January the 1st would include what? Okay, well, let's look at what we did here. We spent our money on the following things. So let's go ahead and now we're replenishing. So we're going to debit the accounts that we spent the money on. So we have a payment for office supplies. And they set it to be an asset, so it's not expense. So supplies office for $87.42. We have a payment for postage expense, and that was $39. Okay, now it says, this is important to know, that the actual cash that they counted in the fund was $22.98. That's how much they counted. Well, here's something we need to do here. So we're trying to figure out how much cash to put back in, right? So this is how much they actually counted. So we need to make it be $150 again. So I'm going to use my calculator. 150 minus $22.98. So we need to put back $127.02. That's how much goes back. Now, let's look at something real quick. Okay? Well, I'm going to go ahead and put my credit. I'm going to put cash. And I know I got to put back this amount. Now, let's just make sure our debits equal our credits. So if we do that, $126.42. $126.42. Okay, that's what I actually spent on paper, but there's not that much left. So am I short or over? Well, let's do the math. Here's 60 cents. So we're off by 60 cents. And are we short or over? Okay. Well, if we have to put more in than we actually spent, then we were actually short. So we were short 60 cents. So we're going to debit cash, short, and over by 60 cents. So now when you do the math, your debits now equal your credits. So let's look at the question. And by the way, this is a bonus question. It says the entry to record the reimbursement of the petty cash fund on January 31st would include a debit to petty cash. A, no. We never use petty cash when we're replenishing. Next one, a credit to petty cash? No. Again, we never use petty cash when we're replenishing. A credit to cash in the bank for $126.42? No. Look at D. A credit to cash in the bank for $127.02. So this would be our correct answer, D. Now, 55. The entry to record the reimbursement of the petty cash fund would include a debit to petty cash. No, we talked about there's never petty cash used in reimbursements. A debit to cash shortened over for 60 cents. That looks correct, but let's just make sure the others aren't too. A debit to petty cash. Again, we're not using petty cash. And then D, cash shortened over $1.20. Okay, and that would be wrong. So the correct answer is B, a debit to cash shortened over 60 cents. All right, 56 is another bonus question. The entry to record the reimbursement of the petty cash fund would include a debit to an asset account. Okay, so supplies office is an asset account. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind. And it also says there's a debit to an expense account. Postage expenses expense account. So that's true also. So then C says both A and B, which is correct. And then D says none of the above. So the answer would be C, both A and B. And then the last one, 57, the entry to record the increase in the petty cash fund on February 1st would include what? Now, I didn't really cover this in the actual lesson, but anytime, so right now it's at 150, but there's going to be occasions where the next month we've realized we need more money in the petty cash account than what we started with. So the next amount we're going to establish, because remember that means to start with how much money's in there. And we want to, it says that on February 1st, we want to increase the petty cash fund by 50. So all we have to do is establish it by $50. So that'll increase this to now 200. So let's look at the last question, 57. The entry to record the increase would include a debit to petty cash for 50, yes. A credit to petty cash? No, it's still cash. A debit to petty cash for $50.60? No, it's $50 we want to increase. And then D, a credit to petty cash? No. So the answer would be A debit to petty cash account. Okay, hopefully you understand petty cash. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, hit like. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. And I'll see you next time.